Hi and welcome back to Shorts in Psychology. Today I'm going to explain the Lars and the Real Girl essay, which is your skills and applications summative task for the personality topic. Okay, so this essay, the word count is 1,000 words, and within it you need to describe Lars's personality in terms of two of the psychological conceptions that we've covered in class. So you might like to use Freud's theories, including the structure of the mind, so unconscious, conscious and subconscious, structure of personality, id, ego, superego. You could talk about defense mechanisms that Lars is using to ease anxiety experienced by his ego, or you might like to talk about the psychosexual stages of development and perhaps that Lars is fixated at one stage and some of the characteristics of his personality that result of this fixation. You might also like to use Maslow's hierarchy of needs and talk about which level of the hierarchy Lars is at and how he is trying to meet his needs at this level. You could also use Rogers' humanistic approach and talk about Lars's self-concept, his ideal self, and the level of congruence that he has between these two forms of his self. You could also use a trait approach, and so this could be Eysenk's 3 dimensions of personality, so the 3 scales: extroversion, introversion, neuroticism, emotional stability, psychoticism and impulse control, or you might like to use the 5-factor model, also known as Ocean. If you choose one of these models, particularly the 5-factor model, you might not want to discuss Lars's personality in terms of all 5 characteristics. You may just want to choose 2 or 3 of the traits and discuss Lars's level of each of those traits in more detail. So let's go through the structure of the essay in a bit more depth. The first part of your essay is the introduction. You want to keep this fairly short so that most of your word count is for the body of the essay. So try and keep your introduction below 100 words. What you want to do in this part of the essay is to briefly introduce the film, so perhaps just give a sort of summary overview of the storyline and introduce Lars's character. Who is Lars and what happens to him in the course of the film? You also in your introduction want to mention which personality conceptions you will be discussing. So as I said, the body of the essay is the bulk of your task, so you want to have a good 800 words for the body of the essay. And if you're doing 2 conceptions, look at it in terms of, well, it's roughly 400 words per chosen conception. So in the body of the essay, you want to analyse the actions and behaviours of Lars to make conclusions about his personality, and you want to apply your chosen personality conceptions to these actions. So for example, if you go with the trait approach and you conclude that Lars is an introvert, you need to summarise what introversion is and then explain what evidence you see in Lars's behaviour and perhaps what he says, his body language, that supports him being an introvert. So you need to make sure that you justify your analysis with evidence from the film in terms of Lars's behaviour and also, perhaps what he says to others, his interactions with others. You also need to make sure in the body of your essay that while you don't give a really detailed description of your theories, you give enough of a definition that people can understand the theories that you're applying to Lars. The last part is your conclusion. Again, this should be really brief, and in this part you just want to restate your main points, because the aim of the conclusion is just to remind the reader of the strength of your main argument and just reiterate the most important evidence that supports those arguments. So let's look at the specific features for the task, which is how the task is going to be assessed. So the first performance standard is investigation 2. Critically and logically selects and consistently and appropriately acknowledges information about psychology. So these are your references. So you need to make sure you have a wide range of references, so a minimum of 3 or 4, and they need to be credible references. So don't use Wikipedia or anything that isn't a credible psychology source. You also need to have a range of sources, so this is not just the number of sources that you have, but also where they come from. So websites, journal articles, newspaper articles, textbooks. The second feature is application 2, which is using psychological terms highly effectively. So this is your communication and correct use of psychological terminology throughout your essay. Knowledge and Understanding 1, which is consistently demonstrating a deep and broad knowledge and understanding of a range of psychological concepts. This one is covered in your summary of the theory of the personality conceptions that you're using, as well as summarizing Lars's behavior, relating his characteristics to those chosen theories. As is knowledge understanding too, so perceptively and logically understanding and explaining behaviours. So this one relates specifically to how you analyse Lars's behaviour and his personality and the evidence that you use to support your conclusions. So some of the common pitfalls made in this essay that you want to try and avoid include writing too much film recount. So give a really brief summary in the introduction, but in the body of your essay, you should just be relating to particular incidences or behaviours that are supporting your conclusions, rather than just restating and summarising scenes and who says what and who does this. You also need to make sure that you clearly link Lars's behaviour to his personality characteristics. So instead of just saying Lars doesn't talk to people, Lars is an introvert, he finds it difficult to maintain conversations with work colleagues. And you also need to make sure that you're linking his behaviour to your chosen personality conception, rather than just giving a description of Lars and his personality. You also need to make sure that you don't over-explain the personality theories. Again, these shouldn't be large paragraphs. There should just be enough of a description of the theory that when you relate it to Lars, it makes sense. And lastly, there may be instances where a quotation could be useful, but don't overuse them. You should only include a quote if it genuinely is adding something to your essay. Okay, so just remember finally to check the due date of the draft and the due date for the final copy. These are on the task sheet, they're on sector, they should be in your diary. The draft needs to be a complete copy. I won't be drafting incomplete essays, and it's really important that you submit that draft by the deadline to maximise the amount of feedback that you get and to ensure that you achieve your full potential in the final copy. Also make sure that when you are submitting your final copy that you don't forget to upload it into Turnitin as well. Good luck writing your essay.